You have all come to hear the remarkable Lesley Sachs, who I had the pleasure of hearing on Shabbat Live this week, and who embodies and fights for the core principles, for the core values that all of us in this room hold so dear here at Emmanuel Synagogue, the UPJ, and across the Jewish community. Values of equality, values of inclusion, justice, human rights, and rule of law. We are so grateful that Lesley and all of you here tonight support the UIA Progressive Trust, which helps us advocate for those values in Israel, helping to make it, Israel that is, a more pluralistic and inclusive democracy.
I'm going to start off with the sign that some of you might have seen already, because I show it wherever I go. This is the sign that I hold at every demonstration I go to now in Israel. And it's a sign of the reform movement. It says, B'Shem HaYahadut Nagen Al HaDemokratya. In the name of Judaism, we will protect democracy. And just before I came here, I looked at something that was sent on one of the 50 WhatsApp groups that I'm a member of, all connected to the civil revolt. And it had some images from the demonstration which happened in Rome when the Prime Minister arrived there. And lo and behold, they were holding this sign. Our people from the reform movement in Rome were holding this same sign. So this last Saturday evening, I read, and I'm sure that many of you also read, 500,000 Israelis were out in the streets. Now, it grows every week. This is not many weeks that we've been going. The first time I went, and the one in Tel Aviv is always the largest. I live in Tel Aviv, so I go to that one. We were about 70,000 people, and it was one demonstration, and people and buses came from all over Israel in pouring rain, and we stood and we felt this was fantastic. And then the week after that, people from other cities said, we're not going up to Tel Aviv, we're going to demonstrate in our own cities. And slowly, we've grown to over 100 demonstrations every Saturday evening, and 500,000 people out in the streets. Now, Israel doesn't have that many citizens. 500,000, that's a lot of people. These demonstrations have really unified Israelis in a way that we have never seen before. Israelis, young and old, left, right, and center. And again, I look at the news, and I saw this last Saturday, for the first time, we even had separate rallies of Likud supporters. So, this is really spreading, and this brings a lot of hope. After each rally, the reform movement holds, before each rally, a Havdalah. We bring another voice of Judaism, which is a really different voice. We want to bring light into this looming darkness. And I think it's really important to understand that feeling that Israelis have now, that somehow religion for them is leading them into an area that they don't want to go, into a direction that they don't want Israel to go. And the reform movement, which is standing really in the forefront of these rallies, of this battle, says, wait, don't throw away the baby with the water. Judaism can be something else. And we have a Havdalah in many, many cities led by our rabbis, and people are excited by it. They cheer us because they want to see a different kind of Judaism with the values that we all share, that we are bringing to Israel. So that is something that I'm very proud of. Now, this government, number 8, this government, as you will see in a minute, our government. This government is the most religious in our 74 years. We have 6 parties. 5 of them are religious by definition. 2 are ultra-Orthodox, and 3 are religious Zionist, meaning they combine rigid orthodoxy with ultra-nationalism. And the only party that is not religious by definition is the Likud. But in a coalition, the Likud cannot function without the other 5 parties. And so in so many ways, and these are questions that I've been asked during my presentations, the Likud is being led in a path of legislation that they are not interested in. They certainly want the legislation with the override clause over the Supreme Court and the election of the judges, but all the rest of the legislation that I'm going to be talking about now is not led by the Likud, but rather by the other parties. Each of them has their own interests, and I'm going to talk a little bit about it. So the first area is education. We are going to be losing our stand in the educational system. We will not be able to bring in our pluralistic programs, which we do today, into the school system. But no, not only us. The LGBTQ organizations won't be able to go into the school system. And that is a big problem for a lot of youngsters who need to hear about the movement, about other children who've been where they are now. And so a complete block of any other kind of thinking, any pluralistic way of thinking, any inclusive way of thinking in the educational system. This is something that we know we're going to be facing. The Western Wall. At the moment, at the Western Wall, women of the wall are permitted to pray in the women's section. We are not arrested anymore. We can pray with our talit, with our tefillin. We can't read Torah because the rabbi who is in charge of the Western Wall will not let us bring in a Torah scroll. In the men's section, there are 300 Torah scrolls. Any of you men can just go up and take one and read one. And we have to smuggle one into the women's section every month. Every month, think creatively. We have now a very small Torah scroll. So it's getting, there are different ways of getting it in. And we've been very creative about it. But Shas and Yahadut Torah, the 2 ultra-Orthodox parties, in the coalition agreement, they have a promise that they will be able to pass legislation that the only way to pray at the Western Wall will be according to the custom of the chief rabbinate. So, we're not going to be able to pray there anymore, women of the wall, out loud, without talit. We'll be arrested. I say I'm not sure how I'm going to look with an orange overall with a number. Orange is not my color, but, if we have to, we will go to prison. Women of the Wall are a very brave, tenacious group of women. And the few reasons that we're fighting so bravely over the Western Wall. One of them, of course, is because the Western Wall is the holiest place to all of us. It belongs to all Jews, wherever we are. Most of the Jews of the world are liberal, or even secular. And it is ours as much as it is anyone else's. But that is not the only reason. Segregation at the Western Wall and silencing women will not remain at the Western Wall. It'll start off there and it'll move into the public sphere. And we know that. We know that we have to continue being there and fighting there to stop it from, flowing out to the public sphere. Which brings me to the second legislative change which is being demanded by the ultra-Orthodox parties. And that is a change to a law which forbids discrimination when giving services. There is a law in Israel. I want to remind us all that we have no constitution, so legislation, laws that exist are very important. And this is the law. You are not permitted to discriminate against women, against Arabs, against Ethiopians, against any group when giving services. And I want to say, now, some of you have heard it, I want to say a few words about the segregated buses, which really explains so well why this law is important. So we have a national bus service called Eged, and suddenly the buses, several of them which go through ultra-Orthodox neighborhoods, started to be segregated. The men would tell the women, you need to sit at the back of the bus. And even if you were a secular woman or not an ultra-Orthodox woman, any woman, the men would bully you to sit at the back of the bus. The Israel Religious Action Center, which is the legal and advocacy arm of the reform movement in Israel, took the Minister of Transport to the Supreme Court and argued against him and won. They won a precedent-setting verdict by which Eged was not permitted to segregate buses. And every bus that you go into in Israel will have a sticker that says anyone in this bus can sit anywhere they want. This victory was made able because it was based on this law preventing discrimination in services. Now, this law is going to change because the ultra-Orthodox want to be able to enforce segregation. They want to enforce segregation maybe in swimming pools, at the beach, maybe, in supermarkets, certain hours for men, certain hours for women, in sick fund clinics. And when this law will be changed, segregation will be open against women, but people will be able to discriminate against other minorities, LGBTQ. A club owner will be able to say, I don't want Arabs in my club, or I don't want Ethiopians, or women, or it will be legal. And we will not be able to argue it in court. So this is a serious thing, this change which is going to happen in the law of preventing discrimination. Both the World Union and the IMPJ, the Israel movement, have been very involved in helping Jews coming from Ukraine. And both helping them there, and then many of them made Aliyah. And those who were Reform, we helped them get permission to make Aliyah. And we had a whole lot of them who had started conversion. They were just going, right before Bet Din, and then the war broke out. And so they know that they have gone through the whole process of conversion, but Israel says to them, no, you didn't do Bet Din, you're not Jewish. So we had to fight in court to get permission to do the Bet Din in Israel and give them a home in Israel. These are our converts from Ukraine. So this is just an example, on the one hand, the work that we do, and on the other hand, of what we could lose if all this legislation, unfortunately, might pass. In the Declaration of Independence, it clearly states the fact that all Jews everywhere in the world are stakeholders in Israel. And for 74 years, Israel has had no problem coming to Jews in the diaspora saying, support us, lobby for us, raise money for us. You are, all of you, part of Israel. And it is as important to you as it is to us. It's crucial that Israel remains a democracy for all of us, just like the Ukrainian Jews who had a place to go to. And now a lot of Jews from Russia are immigrating to Israel because they don't feel they want to be there anymore. Israel has to be a democratic homeland for all of us, and we all have a responsibility to make sure that it stays a democratic country. And for sure, everybody has not only the right, in my eyes, but the obligation. And we will be there for you, and we're so grateful that you are there with us. Thank you very much.
One aspect of the bills that Lesley didn't mention that is fragile and troubles me greatly. In the draft bill that is now before the Knesset, it provides the chief rabbinate with judicial power over civil disputes, including commercial disputes, so that if a business owner wishes to have a civil dispute, he, and it's usually he, will go to the chief rabbinate rather than the civil courts, and whichever court you choose first has jurisdiction. There's a problem, of course. In the courts of the chief rabbinate, a female cannot testify. So if the person being sued happens to be a female business owner, you know which way the dispute's going to be resolved. That's the problem of having a potential theocracy, and it's the thin end of the wedge. In making Israel a home for all Jews, we need to keep supporting the amazing work that we have supported of our movement in Israel, the Israel Movement for Progressive Judaism and the World Union for Progressive Judaism. Our investment has been exemplary. 100 cents in the dollar that you contribute through the Progressive Appeal goes to these progressive causes. It does not get diverted. We're very proud of that. And last year, for the first time, we exceeded $1.3 million raised to support the progressive movement in Israel. We hope to exceed that target this year. I'm going to ask that you please, and my colleague will pass out pens for those who need them. Please don't go out to coffee and dessert without filling out the pledge card that is in front of you. I give the equal thanks to those who can afford $18 and those who can afford $18,000 and anything in between.
ולאיש רלב la tzaddik.